And greetings YouTube gamers, welcome to another episode of Retro Raider. My name is Johnny Retro and welcome to the channel. So guys, today I have a top 10 video for you, and this is one that I've been wanting to make for a very long time now. Because today we're going to take a closer look of my top 10 video games for the Atari 2600. And by the way, if you're new on the channel, feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss a thing. Now about my picks guys, of course there's no nostalgia involved here because this system right here was released 11 years before I was even born. But I truly love to collect for the Atari 2600 and I think that this is a system that definitely deserves a place in every game room. And I'm also not saying that these are the best games on the system, these are just my personal favorites from my personal collection. So sit back, relax, grab a cold one, and let's take a closer look of my top 10 video games for the Atari 2600 right after this. Okay, so these are not in any specific order, but the first one, this first pick right here, is one of the reasons why I love to play the Atari 2600. I think that this is the perfect system to play with your friends at gaming nights. So my first pick is the classic Combat. Classic Atari 2600 game from '77. I think that this was actually the PacMan game, and definitely not the best good looking game on the system, but like I said, it is very fun to play against your friends. I'm definitely not a very competitive person, but this game definitely messes up with me a little bit on that sense. Definitely my number one pick to play with your friends, Combat. Okay, number two, so PacMan on the Atari 2600, it is not a very good game. However, you can't go wrong with Mrs. Pac-Man. In my opinion, this is the PacMan game to play on the 2600. It has pretty much all of the classic elements from PacMan, but instead of PacMan, you play with Mrs. Pac-Man. So yeah, it is pretty much PacMan with a bow. But a very fun home arcade experience from a classic game. And I actually have a cool story with Mrs. Pac-Man because, and I'm not kidding here, I've actually met one of the creators of this game. Mr. Kevin Curran, yeah, the guy responsible for the ports of Mrs. Pac-Man to the Atari 2600. And here is a photo of me and him to prove it. I was working at a regular flea market that I work at, and he's just passed by my booth. Very nice guy, it was an honor to meet this legend. So yeah, number two, Mrs. Pac-Man. Now this game, this is probably one of the most beautiful games on the system, Berserk. Now I never played the original arcade game, but from what I've heard, I think that this is a very faithful port. It is one of my favorite single-player games on the system, and it is a very complex game for the Atari 2600. You have a lot of exploration, multi-screens, and the iconic villain, Evil Otto. I don't know why, but I have this weird fantasy of Evil Otto as a guest character in a Super Smash Bros. Game. I think that it would be cool. Let me know if you agree on the comment section below. So if you're looking for a good single-player experience on the 2600, you can't go wrong with Berserk. Now number 4, a game that got a lot of ports, but I personally love the 2600 one. Frogger, classic arcade game that personally I think that it is a lot of fun. I think that by now everybody has heard about this game. And I'm not particularly good at these classic games, but I'm actually good at Frogger. So it is one of those examples where I'm always trying to beat my score, because that was what the Atari 2600 was all about, scores. So yeah, one of my personal favorites, Frogger. Now number 5, and what a classic this is. Breakout is probably one of the most iconic games on the 2600. Personally, I prefer the sequel, Super Breakout. Very fun paddle game, I think that it is a must-have on the system, and the reason why I prefer Super Breakout is because not only the game looks better, in my opinion, but it is more challenging and you do have other gaming options compared to the first one. And please let me know if you agree with me, but I think that the controllers are better in Super Breakout. Not much more that I can say about Super Breakout, but another very good example of a game that it always pushes you to beat your personal score. Now, speaking about a good challenge, this one is a very challenging game. For number 6, I picked the classic Millipede. Now the reason why I prefer Millipede compared to Centipede, it is pretty much the same reason why I preferred Super Breakout to Breakout. More stuff going on at the same time, the game looks better in my opinion, and it is more challenging. But here is my little secret. I suck at this game. I suck at Centipede, I suck at Millipede, but again, another classic game that really pushes me to beat my personal score, which it is not very high. But again, another classic that you really can't go wrong with, Millipede. Now, number 7. This, in my opinion, it is one of the best good-looking games on the Atari 2600. Because when you think about Atari, you don't think about good graphics. I mean, the NES and the Master System are light years ahead of this machine. But this next pick, guys, it is a very impressive game. It is a very impressive game for the Atari 2600. I would even say that this could easily be an early release on the NES. And also you can't go wrong with a good shooter on the 2600, so this pick is Demon Attack. Everything that Imagic did back in the day, I think it was pretty awesome for the 2600. And again, believe it or not guys, I've actually met one of the creators of this game. I hope that I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Mr. Wilfredo Aguilar. And here is a photo of me with him, again at the same place. So it was pretty much the same situation. I was at my regular booth and there it was. But I didn't know who he was, but I was actually selling a couple of Atari 2600 games. And I didn't have any iMagic game there, but you know, he talked to me and he told me who he was. And the guy was awesome. Amazing guy indeed. And about Demon Attack, well, if you like shooters, you really can't go wrong with this game. Now, number 7. A lot of people won't agree with me on this pick. And as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of RPGs. And RPGs were not still a thing back in the day, at least in home consoles. But I think that this game was the starting point of what eventually became the 8-bit RPGs. Venture. Now this is not an RPG per se guys, but if you think about it, it has a lot of RPG elements within it. So this game was released in 1982 and it was based on an arcade game released 1 year before. And you play with Winky, this red dude right here with a bow and an arrow. And you have to go throughout these mazes and find treasure, which in my opinion, it is the basic plot for any RPG. So in a sense, this is a dungeon crawler, but playing this game nowadays, it is a little bit weird. Because we're not talking about Legend of Zelda or Dragon Warrior. Back in the day, you really had to use your imagination in order to play these games. Because what you see on the screen, it is just a visual representation of the story and the plot of the game. That's why manuals were very important back in the day. So guys, if you like RPGs, if you grew up playing them, and you have an Atari 2600, definitely give this one a try, because I think that it is a very cool experience. It also got a port for the ColecoVision and the Intellivision. The 2600 port, it is not as good looking as those, but it is totally playable. I have a lot of respect for this game, so Venture, one of my personal favorites on the system. Now number 9, and this really is one of the best games on the system. A game in which I believe it's on every top 10 Atari 2600 game, and with a good reason, because this is a masterpiece. Yars Revenge. Back in the day it was all about shooters, and the Atari 2600 received a lot of shooters, so there was a lot of concept recycling back then. But Yars Revenge, it is one of the most original shooters that I've ever played. First of all, the graphics are awesome. Again, we're talking about 2600 standards. And what makes this game stand out is actually the gameplay. First of all, in order to reach the boss, you have to take down his shield. But you have a neutral zone in the middle of the screen. A neutral zone where you can't be attacked, but you also can't attack. So it is just not speed and reflexes like in other shooters. There's strategy involved. That's why I love this game. That's why a lot of people like this game. An eternal classic, Yars Revenge. Now the last one, and this is definitely my favorite Atari 2600 game. And I've said at the beginning of the video that there was not nostalgia involved in these picks, but I actually have nostalgia with this game because my father introduced me to it. And I've actually played this game on the arcades with my dad, and by now I think that you guys already know what game it is. The iconic Space Invaders. What can I say about Space Invaders? I mean, it is Space Invaders. Classic arcade game that I think it was ported pretty much to every system out there. And again, the 2600 one, it is a very good port. And just to make a couple of you feel old, this game turned 40 years old this year. I've actually done a full video about Space Invaders, and I can leave the link of that video in the description box below if you guys want to check it out. So Space Invaders, definitely my all-time favorite Atari 2600 game. And there you go guys, these were my top 10 video games for the Atari 2600. Let me know if you grew up with the Atari 2600, let me know if you still play the Atari 2600, and also let me know your top 10 video games for this iconic, beautiful machine. Let me know on the comment section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, don't forget to put a like on this video, please subscribe to the channel and take care of yourselves, take care of the gaming community, and game a lot.